Staking is coming to Arbitrum. Hey guys, I wanted to make a video about a proposal that was recently passed on the Arbitrum Snapshot website. This proposal had to do with the activation of staking capabilities for the Arbitrum token. I personally think this is a huge development for the Arbitrum ecosystem, so I wanted to go through this proposal with you guys and mention some of the implications that this change will have. Without further ado, let's get into it. Before we begin, I also want to mention the outcome of this proposal. The proposal passed on the 6th of November and saw 66% of votes in favor and 33% of votes against the proposal. This was ultimately enough to pass, and the amount of tokens for redistribution that the DAO decided on was 100 million ARB. This number will become important later on, but for now, let's cover exactly what was said in the proposal. The proposal starts off by mentioning some of the changes this proposal has over its temperature check iteration. One of these changes was the removal of token minting to fund the initiative in favor of a request from the Treasury for these tokens. Another one of these changes is the introduction of an Arbitrum coalition. This coalition would simply be a group funded by this proposal that would oversee the Arbitrum staking initiative by creating dashboards and a final report about its effectiveness. This group would also potentially be responsible for audits for these staking contracts. Some more changes added to this version include the introduction of additional voting options as well as a decrease of the max lock penalty from 80% to 60%. The abstract section begins by establishing some context about the current state of the Arbitrum DAO Treasury and its ecosystem. It mentions how well the Treasury is funded, pointing out that it has over 3.4 billion in assets and receives surplus sequencer fees being earned from the network. It also claims that none of this growth in funding is being shared with token holders. To combat this, the proposal proposes the creation of a staking feature that would incentivize both long-term holders of ARB as well as creating an additional fundamental yield component on the network. Next, the proposal establishes a plan to have either 1.75, 1.5, 1.25, or 1% of the ARB supply in the Treasury be used for this staking initiative over the course of 1 year. This initiative would be overseen by this new Arbitrum coalition, which would give the Arbitrum DAO insights about what worked and what didn't with this new feature. Next, the proposal talks about the legal aspect of this initiative, mentioning that giving users funds in the form of revenue could result in negative consequences with the law. To prevent this, a staking feature with locked tokens could circumvent that and allow for a way for Arbitrum users to capture some of the value of the Arbitrum treasury. The motivation section mostly talks about how a staking mechanism could align incentives for long-term holders of the ARB token and considers what form of staking model would allow the Arbitrum DAO to do this in the best way possible. It mentions that there are countless examples of staking models that haven't been able to align incentives and be sustainable long-term, so it proposes to experiment with some of these models and take advice from the Arbitrum coalition in order to create the best system possible. Such a staking mechanism for the ARB token would obviously have a lot of effects on the entire ecosystem, and this next section gets into those. Some of these effects include significantly increased interest in Arbitrum and the ARB token, added composability and use case for the ARB token, mercenary capital penalized in favor of long-term holders, having an additional feature that separates Arbitrum from other networks, and offer a first step towards different forms of revenue sharing in the future. Next, we get into the benefits that Arbitrum token holders can expect through this proposal. This section highlights some of the math surrounding possible APRs for users who stake the Arbitrum token. The proposal has included a screenshot of 4 tables showing the different amounts of APRs users can expect relative to the ARB supply distributed annually. These tables also include figures for APRs based on the amount of circulating supply staked at any given time. Keeping these numbers in mind will be important in order to understand how big this staking initiative could be for the Arbitrum network. The specification section goes more in depth into the exact details around the staking mechanism. Things like lock duration, increasing lock times, pausing lock times, and additional details can all be found in this section. It also includes an example of how using different locking features would affect a staker's APR. The FAQ section mentions 3 different topics that were commonly brought up. First, why would a locking mechanism be used? The proposal states that a locking mechanism is beneficial for aligning incentives with long-term holders, as well as protocols who might have received airdrops and were still holding ARB tokens. Token locks also wouldn't have to be very long, with options existing for 1-year lockups and potentially even less time. The second topic listed was addressing some of the consequences of this proposal. The proposal simply mentions that long-term holders will be incentivized through this mechanism, and the ARB token will finally have some more utility. The third question asked is about what this staking mechanism would mean for the delegation of ARB tokens. The proposal clarifies that locked ARB tokens would still have governance power and could still be delegated regardless of the time lock duration. It also mentions that this contract will be upgradable by the DAO, ensuring that the DAO can pause the distribution of tokens at any time. The summary section just touches on the previous topics, such as the Arbitrum coalition, the amount of tokens requested for redistribution, and some of the values that this proposal aims to uphold. Next, the timeline section highlights what the process for voting on this topic would look like and when users could expect key progressions for this proposal to happen. Obviously, as of now, this proposal has been passed, so now we are awaiting the next steps towards implementation. The voting options show the different token supply percentages that users could have voted on to pass this proposal. The suggested steps to implement puts forth a plan that the DAO could use in order to actually implement this new staking feature for the ARB token. The first step would be to receive another proposal for establishing the details of implementation. The second step would be to finish the contracts and audits and do a 2-week community review of them. Third, the contracts would be deployed on Arbitrum and ownership would be given to the DAO. And last, costs of this whole process would be paid out to the appropriate parties. So that's it for the proposal. Obviously, this change has the potential to significantly improve the Arbitrum ecosystem. As mentioned in their proposal, the ability to have another base layer of yield that protocols can include into their yield-bearing products is huge. Competitive yields are one of the most important tools in DeFi, and they tend to attract a lot of users to them, especially when they are low risk. As of now, competing layer 2 networks like Optimism don't have official DAO native token staking capabilities, which puts Arbitrum ahead of other networks. We can also safely assume that interest in Arbitrum should spike again as retail participants, venture capitals, and major protocols would now have a reason to be on Arbitrum and hold their token. Now, although there are some nice benefits to this proposal, we should also mention the downsides. First off, the Arbitrum treasury will suffer as a result of this initiative, as it would require it to redistribute some of the ARB it currently holds. This initiative would also lead to a lot more ARB tokens existing in the circulating supply, which could potentially lead to heavy downwards price action as people begin to start taking profits. Overall though, it seems to me that this proposal aims to stimulate the Arbitrum ecosystem at a great time, and it remains to be seen how effective this proposal is at maintaining and increasing Arbitrum's dominance in the L2 wars. That's all for this video. I'll try and keep you guys updated on other developments that take place in regards to this topic, but until then, prepare for Arbitrum staking and a potential upcoming Arbitrum season. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe as it greatly helps my channel. Also, if you have any ideas for other protocols or topics that you'd like me to cover, please leave your ideas in the comments down below and I'll do my best to get to them. Until next time, stay safe out there, Anons.